Hello, listeners. You're listening to Radio Udaan. I'm your RJ Babuji Janakarajan, and this is the Great Indian Monologue talk show, the next episode. In the past few episodes, I was talking about the issues with water, how we handle water and mishandled it. And I promised to continue elaborating on Green Revolution in this episode. But then, as I have been continuing the same topic over the last few episodes, I thought I would take a small diversion to discuss about another pressing issue that we face as a nation and how we handle it or mishandle it and what could be done. Okay. Have you ever heard about the popular term mea culpa, which originates from Latin? In Latin language, mea culpa means I am the culprit. But I would start my monologue with a slightly modified statement that mea culpa tua culpa, which means I am the culprit and you are also the culprit. Why so? To understand this statement and the context in which I have mentioned it, I would like to introduce you to another term which is called 400 grams of conscience. This is actually the title for this monologue. 400 grams of conscience. Conscience is, our inner compass, which makes us do righteous things, right? This is a conscience. We cannot cheat our conscience, I work with my conscience and so on and so forth. So, what is this weight about? What is this 400 grams? Why is it associated to conscience? 400 grams, just 400 grams. This is what each denizen of my city, which is Coimbatore in the southern part of India, in the state of Tamil Nadu. This is what each citizen of my city throws out as garbage on an average day. 400 grams is the per head garbage that we people throw out in my city, right? How much does this 400 grams of garbage actually weigh? It sounds like a stupid question, right? 400 grams must weigh 400 grams. What kind of a question is this? So big deal, you say. It is indeed a big deal, right? My city has close to 2 million people. It may be around 2.2, 2.3 million, whatever. But I love round numbers, so I take it as 2 million people, right? So if you do a little bit of basic mathematics in your mind, the actual weight of this 400 grams is 800,000 kilos of garbage. That is 800 tons of garbage every single day, except a festival day. During a festival day, the garbage goes up to 1,000 tons of pure filth, or even beyond 1,000 tons. Right? My city is not alone. World over, this pile of garbage and the safe handling or the lack of it is a huge problem that results in monumental disasters from time to time. Just some time ago, a garbage mound went bottoms up and buried 100 plus people who were literally living on the mound just outside Colombo, Sri Lanka. If I remember right, this was the year 2018 or 2019, when a lot of rank pickers, who scavenge the garbage mounds for any kind of valuable item, they were busy working on a particular garbage pile, which was really 100 feet high or even higher than that, in the outskirts of a city called Colombo in Sri Lanka. And all of a sudden, the garbage pile, it just caved in. So those rank pickers who were looking for valuable things, amidst the garbage, they lost the most valuable thing in their life, which is basically their life. They got killed, right? Take the case of my city, nestled at the foothills of Western Ghats. Western Ghats is a great range of mountains which act as a water source for a large swath of land. It hosts a lot of wildlife, tree species, herbs and whatnot, right? My city is nestled at the foothills of Western Ghats. It's a beautiful place, right? Till the 80s, garbage had virtually no plastic in it. People were responsible in their purchases. Not many houses had refrigerators. People reused or recycled whatever they could at their homes. What they could not reuse or recycle only found its way into a dump yard at the then western edge of the city. Processing the garbage was easy. They were actually composted and sold off to eager farmers who would line up to buy this healthy fertilizers. Even today, this area of the city is referred as manure company area. because people used to bring their bullock-driven cars to this place to haul the garbage which was composted into good quality fertilizer. They actually took this fertilizer back in their bullock cars and applied them in the soil to enrich the soil to increase the yield from the farms, right? Somewhere into this narrative, plastic found its way. Then all stink broke loose. Not just hell, but stink broke loose. The stench was unbearable even many kilometers away from the spot. City handlers of this garbage pile were forced to hunt for a suitable relocation site elsewhere, as the guards didn't give them much room to move further west or north because it was already on the foothills. They couldn't move any west or north, distance away from the spot where we used to have this manure company. But nobody, even back then, really thought about why we started using plastic, which was causing the trouble, the root cause of the trouble, right? They found the land on the eastern side of the city, well outside the then city limits. The city, my city, Coimbatore, it was a much smaller version of the current one way back in the 1970s, 80s. So it was easier for them to relocate the garbage collection area from the Western Ghat point to the eastern side of the city, but just outside the city limit, or even well outside the city limits. Okay. They had one problem though: how to convince people living in that area to part with the fertile land, because the land that they wanted to use for building the new garbage pile or the new garbage storage area was fertile land. That area was actively cultivated by herdsmen living there, growing fodder crops for the cattle. I mean, cattle was the mainstay. So this land was used for cultivating fodder, grass for cattle. Around that time, these people too had a problem. Water, the lack of it to grow their fodder. They didn't have adequate water to grow crops in their field, right? So a deal was struck. The garbage handlers shall bring sewage water from the city all the way to this small area, to this village, in addition to bringing the garbage from the city. Use the processed water to grow crops, basically fodder crop, 50% of which would be given off to the villagers in exchange of 800 acres of fertile land that had around 70 wells in it, sweet water wells. So the deal was like, you give us land, 800 acres from your village, and we will bring you sewage water in addition to the garbage that we bring in. We will treat the water, and we will keep the water for you to irrigate your fields. And this is a win-win situation, right? And whatever crop you grow, 50% you can keep and the rest we will take. Around the same time, some young guy with a penchant for playing golf formed a club and began work on a full-fledged 18-hole course nearby, golf course. Sometime later, the treated water from the hamlet or the village miraculously found its way into the golf course, helping the lush green to stay green. This was like the water which was promised to the village was diverted to build a golf course to keep the golf course green. What happened to fodder? You scream, right? What fodder? We needed only a world-class golf course for the city, right? Who cares about fodder, man? Economic liberalization that followed in 1991 pushed this manufacturing hub of a city into a rapid growth trajectory. The city started to grow quickly in all directions, north, south, east and west. And mind you, this garbage pile or this garbage storage area was located in the eastern part of the city, just outside the city, which started growing rapidly at the onset of economic liberalization in the year 1991. With this newfound money, people started spending more and more on buying and less on using, reusing, recycling. With the economic liberalization, the manufacturing started booming, people started having more money in their hand, so they started spending more. But they reduced reusing or recycling the stuff, which they used to do in the old days. Soon, vehicles started hauling more and more garbage from the city, which was wrapped by plastic of all types of hazards, chemical, medical, and so on. Because the city had a lot of chemical industries, it had a lot of medical industries and hospitals too. Groundwater became contaminated within a very short time and turned into yellow, like YELLOW, yellow. the drinking water in yellow color, highly contaminated. While all these were going on, the city authorities approved a new housing layout just outside the dump yard. Horror after horror, right? 350 plus families bought housing plots without knowing what they were actually buying because the groundwater was contaminated. It was in a way inhabitable place where a housing unit came up and 350 plus houses were marked out. Emperor of all maladies. Have you heard about this book? A popular Indian author wrote this book and it won a Booker Prize or a Pulitzer Prize or whatever in the last 4-5 years. The title of the book was Emperor of all maladies. I mean, the biggest of all diseases is cancer. Cancer became a regular visitor and invariably it also moved out with the host from the city into the suburbs. Many ailments, many protests, many cases and many court verdicts later, the authorities have promised to shift out the huge garbage mountain from this dump yard into areas further down for filling the land with this plastic rich waste. This was like, they would use the plastic waste as land fillers. Somewhere in the future, even these areas would be occupied by our people and they would not be spared either. The same kind of problems would repeat there and the pile would be moved further and further down, right? So if you thought the weight of 400 grams is just 400 grams, you would have by now understood it's much more than 800 tons. But is it really only 800 tons? Rethink, man, rethink, girl, it's much more than that. It's question time, okay? I would ask you a few questions. Few basic questions. If you have some answers, it would be great if you can post the answers as part of your feedback for this show. Question number 1. Why are we so pathetically oblivious to the environmental degradation our very act of throwing out garbage causes? If you throw out garbage outside your house, you think the problem is done? No. Right? So why are we so pathetically ignorant of this environmental degradation our very own act of throwing out a piece of garbage, a plastic garbage, causes? Question number 2. Why are they paying with their lives for our cozy city living habits? They, in the sense, the people who are living on the city outskirts, who are cancer stricken, who are subjected to a lot of chemical hazardary exposure. Why are they paying with their lives for our cozy city living habits of throwing out garbage at will? Question number 3. Why are we so pathetically short of waste segregation and recycling? Why our schools don't show the way to kids at school? We keep talking about wet waste, dry waste, and the need to segregate them to keep them in independent or in separate bins. But why these things are not getting taught in our school? And of late, with all the Swiggy and Zomato and fast food takeaways and faster deliveries, you order food in your phone and the food will be delivered at your home doorstep. We have a third kind of garbage, which is neither wet nor dry, in the sense some kind of soup or some kind of chutney or whatever wrapped in an aluminium foil. You call it a wet waste or a dry waste. Who knows and who decides or who defines it, right? And where to throw it, I tell you from the practical examples I have seen, nobody who orders food through a app in a phone for a faster delivery have time to empty the aluminium foil or aluminium can or box or whatever it is, the content they couldn't eat, into the appropriate wet bin. They just throw it into the dry bin or the wet bin, depending upon their mood on the day, and the garbage segregators and the processors have a hell of a problem, right? So why are we so pathetically short of waste segregation and recycling initiatives? Why our schools don't show the way to kids at school? Question number 3. Manufacturers pay the raw material producers and use those materials to make stuff we drool for or we desire for, right? We pay the manufacturers or the conduits like the distributors and the retailers and so on and use the stuff for our pleasure. The waste we throw out after use poses a further set of tricky questions, Must we be paid for the garbage we throw out if it can be recycled? You like this question, right? If you throw out half a kg of plastic once a week or whatever, you must be paid, right? Because it has an intrinsic value, right? Must we be charged for the reusable, recyclable garbage that we recklessly throw out. This is the other way of looking at it. If we are throwing out something which can be reused or recycled, should we not be punished for it? Why not, publish a banned list of garbage that must be recycled by the buyer or ourselves, or penalized for not doing so? I mean, in the old days, when a family had more number of kids, the dress, the books, and everything used by the elders of the family would be handed down to the next one in the line, and then again down the line, till the material becomes unusable. This was a classic recycling or reusing which was happening in each and every Don family in our country, right? But these days you can see brand new books, everything dumped into garbage bin without even a second thought. And actually they could be reused or recycled. I mean, they could be donated to some kind of a library or to some kind of poorer people who would need this material. It may even help their education, whatever it is. But these are also getting dumped into the regular garbage, right? So, must we be charged for the reusable or recyclable garbage that we recklessly throw out? Why not, publish a banned list of garbage that must be recycled by every one of us and penalize if we don't do so? Yet another question: for the rest of the garbage, why not charge the manufacturer for selling us, something that we cannot recycle? If I receive a kg of rice in a plastic bag, it should be the responsibility of the manufacturer not to have wrapped the rice in a plastic bag in the first place, right? So why not charge the manufacturer an extra amount for selling us, something that we cannot recycle, because we don't have the capability to recycle a bunch of, plastic bags or, plastic containers or whatever, because it needs machinery and it needs time and skill, right? So why not charge the manufacturer, charge them at the source, right? Even better, why not the manufacturer charge the buyer at the point of purchase for collecting back the garbage resulting out of stuff she delivered and recycling it? No need for a banned list then, it would be cost effective due to centralized processing. I would elaborate it a bit more. A manufacturer manufactures something which has plastic in it. The buyer at the point of purchase, if the buyer has an opportunity or an option to give it back at the same point of purchase, the emptied out plastic bag or plastic container or whatever, which could be recycled. This is a much better option, right? If we are able to do that, then we don't have to maintain a banned list. Anything which we mark as garbage, particularly plastic stuff, it could be handed over back to the manufacturer through their access points, and it would be cost effective due to decentralized processing. A company which may be manufacturing something from New Delhi may have distributors all over the country and retailers who are actually selling it in each and every street. And the used wrappers and the used stuff, they could go back to these retailers and then back to the distributors and then back to the manufacturers. Why not? Why not mandate the usage of a part of the huge profits these manufacturers make on collecting and recycling? You say corporate social responsibility, CSR. I say, yay, yes. It must be the way. The whole processing chain could easily be financed using the corporate social responsibility amount each industry actually sets out to spend on corporate social responsibility. What more responsible act on a social scale a corporate can do than handling or taking back the garbage it put in the supply chain in the first place, right? It's time for a reality check, my friends. In a nation of 125 plus crore people and a few thousand manufacturers, it seems far easier for the decision makers to implore the entire 125 crore people to stop using plastic instead of banning the just thousands of manufacturers from using plastic in their products, inside the product as well as outside the product. Have you heard about some popular snack items having plastic inside them? Go on, Google it, you will find it, or ask around, you will hear it, right? So, why are the people, the end users, 130 crore as the count goes now, have been asked to stop using plastic, while the manufacturers who use plastic in the first place in so many ways for wrapping and whatnot are allowed to use plastic still? It is far easier to stop it at that level, right? Because the number is also very small, only a few thousand, if not a few lakh, and it is definitely not 130 crore manufacturers in our country, right? necessity is the mother of invention, and these big manufacturing companies for sure can burn just a minuscule portion of the huge profits to innovate earth-friendly garbage as a way of thanking nature. So yeah, they have research and development R&D section. They could incentivize their R&D to come out with innovative solution which would make the garbage reusable or recyclable easily instead of the current plastic which is just choking up the soil anywhere and everywhere. If they do that, they got everything that they needed from nature, right? After all. So as a Thanksgiving means, because all the raw materials come from Mother Nature, as a Thanksgiving gesture, they must be able to do this, right? To give earth-friendly garbage. Why not? By the way, cost of managing just 1 kilo of solid waste, any guess how much countries spend to manage just 1 kilo of solid waste? It's roughly about $160 as per a report from World Bank. $100 is roughly about 8,000 to 8,500 rupees. 160, if you add another 5,000, so roughly about 13 to 14,000 rupees just to handle 1 kilo of solid waste, and we are producing 800 tons from my city alone, right, every single day. If you consider this, then you can shout what a waste at Google God, because it shall fetch you a glorious 116-page document about trash. If you Google how much rich countries pay to manage their garbage, you may see a 116-page document in the Google search result about trash handling. You go and figure it out by yourself, but keep a few cloth bags in your vehicle or work bag, and this is more important. Commit yourself to reduce, refuse, reuse, recycle from now on. See, the problem, it may start elsewhere, but the solution is well within our grasp. Keep a few cloth bags in your vehicle. It may be a bicycle, it may be a bike, it may be an auto, it may be a car, or whatever. You keep them at hand, you keep them handy, and even if you're working in an office or in a corporate or whatever it is, you throw a couple of bags in your hand case or in your shoulder bag or in your vanity bag, whatever you call it. And this is more important, to use them instead of accepting any kind of plastic ban. You forget the ban from the government. They ban 40 microgram and then 50 microgram. Then you would be getting plastic bags with strength more than 50 grams, with the thickness more than 50 micrograms, and if the bar is raised to 100, you would start receiving your grocery and other stuff in plastic bag, with thickness which goes above 100 grams, whatever is benchmark or the minimum level the government stipulates, right? So instead of just going by that, you commit yourself to reduce the usage of plastic, reuse whatever plastic you already have, and recycle whatever stuff you could before throwing them out as garbage. If we do this, we shall be delivered from the weight of this 400 grams from our conscience forever. The 400 grams of garbage every one of us throw out, if we really commit to reduce it, we will reduce the harm that our singular act causes to Mother Earth. Thank you for listening this long ramble of a monologue. My dear listeners, you're listening to Radio Udaan, and I'm your RJ Babuji Janakarajan. This is yet another episode of the Great Indian Monologue. I will meet you again with yet another topic, most probably about the origin of Green Revolution, which I promised last week in the next episode. Till then, stay blessed. Bye.